Steeped in spirit and story, India's rich cultural and mythological traditions continue to shape who we are today. Writers Satyarth Nayak, Deepa Mandlik, and Aboli Mandlik joined Ridhima Kumar, commissioning editor at HarperCollins India, to explore the timeless appeal of India's epics, legends, and culture.
Hi everyone, I welcome you all and wish you all a very happy World Book Day. It's such a wonderful day to be, celebrating our authors and the books that we publish. We have with us Deepa Mandlik, author of Dynasties of Devotion, and Aboli Mandlik, who has translated the book from Marathi into English. Dynasties of Devotion explores the magic, mythology, and historical contexts behind 7 ancient temples spread across India and Cambodia. Welcome, Deepa ji. Welcome, Aboli.
Thank you.
We also have with us Satyarth Nayak, author of the best-selling book Mahagatha, which continues to create waves even after more than 2.5 years of its release. Mahagatha has been translated into Hindi and Marathi and remains a bestseller in both these editions as well. A very warm welcome to you as well, Satyarth.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So both of you have written books that requires, extensive research and, meticulous details are needed. So Deepa ji, I'll start with you. Your book focuses on 7 temples, their architecture, their history, legends, and, mythological retellings. India में या बाहर, there are so many temples. आपने 7 temples कैसे shortlist करे? Like, was there any process involved? आपका selection process क्या था? और सिर्फ ये 7 temples ही क्यों आपने choose करे?
तो इसके बारे में मैं बताना चाहूंगी कि 2013 से मराठी में मैं ललित लेखन कर रही थी, लेकिन मंदिरों के ऊपर मेरा सबसे पहला लेख मैंने लिखा केरल के श्री पद्मनाभ स्वामी मंदिर के ऊपर। उसका कारण था कि वहाँ पे जो भूमिगत संपत्ति थी उसके बारे में मेरे मन में बहुत जिज्ञासा थी। मैंने जब उसके बारे में पढ़ना शुरू किया तब उस मंदिर का पुनर्निर्माण करने वाला जो राजा था, मार्तंड वर्मा राजा, उसका इतिहास मुझे पता चला। उससे मैं बहुत प्रभावित हुई और मैंने सोचा कि अरे ये इतिहास हमें कभी पढ़ाया गया नहीं है। तो अपने भारत के प्राचीन राजवंश जो है उनका इतिहास और उन्होंने बनाए हुए अद्वितीय मंदिर, उनके बारे में मुझे लिखना चाहिए। और उस तरह से वो थॉट पहली बार मेरे मन में आया। उसके बाद में मैंने फिर डायनेस्टीज का चयन किया। उन्होंने बनाए हुए जो उत्कृष्ट मंदिर है उनका भी चयन किया। मेरे किताब में 7 मंदिर है और 7 मंदिर जो है सभी अद्भुत और अद्वितीय है। जैसे कि एलोरा का कैलाश मंदिर जो है वह राष्ट्रकूट राजाओं ने बनवाया, जो विश्व का सबसे बड़ा केव टेम्पल आज भी कहलाता है। उसके बाद में साउथ में सबसे ज्यादा समय तक चोला राजवंश शासन चला था और उन्होंने बहुत मंदिर बनाए, लेकिन उसमें के 3 मंदिर जो है वो ग्रेट लिविंग चोला टेम्पल्स नाम से पहचाने जाते हैं। द्राविड़ी स्थापत्य का अद्भुत नमूना उन्हें माना जाता है, तो मेरे किताब में उनका भी मैंने समावेश किया है। उसके बाद में कर्नाटक में होयसला डायनेस्टी थे। उन्होंने मंदिर निर्माण में वेसार शैली बहुत डेवलप की, तो उनके जमाने में लगभग 1000 मंदिर उन्होंने तब बनवाए थे। उसमें का चेन्नकेशव मंदिर बहुत खूबसूरत है, वेसार शैली का है, तो मैंने वो अपने किताब में इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहा। और भारत के बाहर भी अपने हिंदू संस्कृति का फैलाव तब हुआ था। कंबोडिया में अपने विष्णु देवता के विश्व के सबसे बड़ा मंदिर है, अंगकोर वैट नाम से पहचाना जाता है, तो मैंने उसका भी समावेश अपनी किताब में किया हुआ है। लेकिन आप बोल रही थी, वैसे मुझे पता है कि इतने राजवंश है और इतने मंदिर है, एक किताब में सभी को कवर करना मुश्किल हो जाता है। किताब की सीरीज आनी पड़ेगी इसके लिए और मेरा काम उसके ऊपर जारी है।
तो जैसे आपने बताया कि आपने इतने सारे रिसर्च करा है, इतने मंदिर आपने लिखे हैं, तो जैसे मतलब स्टिल, लेकिन जैसे आपने 7 मंदिर ही क्यों चुने? लाइक आई रियली लाइक कि आपने लेंथ एंड ब्रेथ ऑफ इंडिया में ये मंदिर सारे चूज करे हैं, लाइक यू नॉट रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू ओनली नॉर्थ इंडिया या वेस्टर्न रीजन्स. सो ये थॉट प्रोसेस आपके पहले दिमाग में था कि लाइक आई हैव टू कवर द एंटायर रीजन एंड देन पुट इट टुगेदर इन द बुक?
हाँ, वैसे मैंने बताया वैसा था कि एक राजवंश उन्होंने बना हुआ उत्कृष्ट मंदिर, अद्वितीय मंदिर, इस तरह से मैंने मेरी चुनाव प्रक्रिया की. उसमें फिर महाराष्ट्र में राष्ट्रकूट डायनेस्टी थी, दक्षिण भारत में चोला डायनेस्टी थी, कर्नाटक की मैंने बताया वैसे होयसाला थी. तो इस तरह से मैंने उनका चयन किया.
Satyarth, same goes for you. Like, there are so many Puranas and there are so many stories. So many stories we've, grown up listening to them from our grandparents, parents. So, how tough or easy was the selection process to, just narrow down on 100 stories? Because I'm sure you must have selected the best of the stories. So, what was your thought behind it? What was your selection process for them?
Hi, Ridhima. Wonderful to do this again. So yes, you're right. There was a plethora of stories when I entered the universe of the Purans. Like there are 36 Purans, and the amount of stories that is staggering. It's like entering an ocean, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed with so much literature, and every story seems fascinating. So how do you create a book out of that? So I did initially feel that it could be an overwhelming process. So I had to set myself with some sort of a guideline. So what I did was, right at the beginning of the book, I created a three-pronged criteria. First of all, the story had to be interesting, period. It had to be something that fascinates you, that lingers in your mind long after you've put the book to rest. That was very important for me. That the story dwells in your mind. You kind of engage with it even when you are not reading the book, and that forms some sort of a mental and cerebral exercise for you. So that was very important. A very fascinating story. That was the first prerequisite. Secondly, who were the characters involved? Who was the dramatis personae, so to speak? Who were the gods, the goddesses, the demons, the sages, the kings? Who were involved in the story? That also was a very important criteria for me. And thirdly, if it was a lesser known story and it deserved a wider audience. And that I think has been a huge strength of Mahagatha, that we have been able to present to the world a host of unknown stories that you and I had never heard of, but which had such wonderful wisdom to offer. So for me, it was important to shine a spotlight on those stories and bring those out into the world. And those have actually garnered the maximum praise. Whether it's the story of Swaha, or the story of, for example, Dhringi, or the story of Prithu, or the story of someone like, Vajranga, those stories have actually garnered a lot of acclaim and love. So I think, yes, it was a very challenging process entering that ocean, like I said. But I think I managed to come out with 100 pearls, and that is Mahagatha.
Would you like to tell us about one lesser known story that has been like loved by people a lot? Like people, I'm sure readers must be writing to you that we've never heard of this. So was there any one such story which like was loved?
I think the story of Swaha is the one that has captured every imagination. That I think and it's a very short story, probably one of the shortest stories of Mahagatha, but that has got so much love because it talks about the woman, the sacred feminine, as the nourishing agent and the nurturing agent of the universe. So it so happens that the gods come to Brahma and say, "We have nothing to eat." And Brahma says, "How's that possible? I've created a very proper system. It's a proper symbiotic system where when you do yajnas on earth, whatever the humans offer, that comes to you up in the heaven as your food. So how can you go famished?" And Agni says, "I don't seem to have the agency to make that transfer possible." So when Brahma consults Prakriti, that's Mother Nature, and they create a goddess, and Brahma says, "You now will be that conduit, and you will be the exchange that will happen, that will make us and keep our gods alive." And when Brahma asks the goddess, "What has Prakriti named you?" the goddess replies, "She calls me Swaha." So Brahma makes a rule that from now on, whenever mantras are chanted in a yajna, every line must end with the word Swaha. Only when Swaha is chanted will the Havish, the offering, reach the gods. So that again is such a beautiful story, and it talks about, like I said, the nourishing agent. But the Puranas have always celebrated women and womanhood and the sacred feminine, and Swaha story just encapsulates that in the most poetic way possible.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. Deepa ji, aapki book mein bhi, there are so many lesser known stories about these temples. So the very first temple that you write about is the Kailasa temple, which is dedicated to Lord Shiva. So इस temple की कुछ ऐसी lesser known stories या some interesting facts आप कुछ बताना चाहेंगे?
हाँ, जरूर बताना चाहूंगी. कैलाश टेम्पल जो एलोरा का है, उसका निर्माण एक विपरीत तरीके से, मतलब शिखर पहले चरण में बनाया गया और लास्ट में नींव रखी गई, जैसा हम लोग कभी ऐसा देखते नहीं है। तो ऐसा क्यों बना, इसकी एक स्टोरी बताई जाती है, वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है। तो एक बार ऐसा हुआ था कि वहाँ जो राजा राज्य कर रहे थे, उनका बीमार हो गए वो बहुत ज्यादा, और रानी को चिंता होने लगी। तो उन्होंने भगवान शिव से मन्नत मांगी कि अगर राजा जल्दी ठीक हो जाते हैं तो मैं आपका मंदिर बनवाऊंगी, और मंदिर का शिखर जब तक मैं नहीं देखूंगी तब तक मैं खाना नहीं खाऊंगी। उसके थोड़े दिन के बाद राजा की तबीयत ठीक हो जाती है, वो स्वस्थ हो जाता है, और रानी का उपवास शुरू हो जाता है। और राजा को लगता है कि रानी जल्दी से जल्दी खाना खाए। इसके लिए वो अपने राज्य के जो आर्किटेक्ट है, उनको स्थपति कहा जाता था, तो स्थपतियों को आमंत्रित करते हैं और बोलते हैं कि जल्द से जल्द मंदिर कैसे बनाया जा सकता है, आप थोड़ा उसके लिए सुझाव दे दो। सभी लोग बोलते हैं कि नहीं, ये पॉसिबल ही नहीं है, उसमें सालों लग जाएंगे। वहां पे एक आर्किटेक्ट होता है जिसका नाम माणिकेश्वर था। तो उन्होंने कुछ सोच के रखा था कि जल्द से जल्द मंदिर कैसे बनवाया जाए, सोल्यूशन निकाला था। तो उन्होंने बोला कि ठीक है राजा, मैं आपका काम कुछ हफ्तों में कर दूंगा और रानी का उपवास छूट जाएगा। तो राजा उनको काम देते हैं। फिर चरणांद्री बोल के एक वहाँ पे पर्वत रेंज है महाराष्ट्र में, उसका चयन माणिकेश्वर स्थपति करते हैं, और वहाँ पे वो पर्वत के पीक के ऊपर से खुदाई चालू करते हैं और पहले शिखर बनाते हैं। और शिखर बनवाने के बाद में रानी को आमंत्रित करके बोलते हैं कि देखो, आपके मंदिर का शिखर तो रेडी हो गया है, अभी आप आपका उपवास तोड़ सकती है। और उस तरह से रानी का उपवास टूटा, बाद में मंदिर बनता रहा। तो ये स्टोरी बताई जाती है। और मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि ये जो पुराण कथा है या फिर आख्यायिका हम लोग बोलते हैं मराठी में इसको, उसके पीछे एक सत्य रहता है, कुछ तो सत्य का अंश रहता है, उसके ऊपर एक पूरी स्टोरी बुनी जाती है। तो माणिकेश्वर वही आर्किटेक्ट था जिसने यह मंदिर बनवाया, और जिसको कोकास कहा जाता था। तो एकदम जब न्यूली ये मंदिर बना था तो उसे माणिकेश्वर नाम से ही जाना जाता था।
जैसे कैलासा टेम्पल में भी आपने लिखा है कि पुराणों का जिक्र था, लाइक पुराण, शिवा की स्टोरी पुराणों से बहुत डिपिक्टेड है उनके अंदर म्यूरल्स में। सो कोई एक स्टोरी आप ऐसे बताना चाहेंगी पुराण से जो डिपिक्टेड है अंदर टेम्पल?
हाँ जरूर, ये मंदिर एक्चुअली मेरे दिल के बहुत करीब है। जैसे कैलाश को शिव जी का निवास माना जाता है, तो वही थॉट लेके ये मंदिर बनाया होगा ऐसा मुझे लगता है, क्योंकि शिव जी के जीवन के ऊपर के सभी प्रसंग उस मंदिर में हमें उकेरे हुए दिखाई देते हैं। उसमें के एक इंटरेस्टिंग जो डिपिक्शन है वो है कैलाश उत्थान या फिर रावणानुग्रह, ऐसा कहते हैं उसको। बहुत सुंदर तरीके से वो वहां पे हम लोगों को देखने को मिलता है। तो उसकी स्टोरी मैं बताती हूँ पहले आपको कि एक बार क्या हुआ था कि रावण जो था बहुत बड़ा महान शिव भक्त था, और उसने अपना भाई जो था कुबेर, उसको युद्ध में हराया। पुष्पक विमान वगैरह तब जीता था उन्होंने, और उन्हें लगता है कि हम शिव जी के दर्शन के लिए जाना चाहिए। तो रावण जीत के बाद में उसके मन में थोड़ा अहंकार पैदा हुआ था, और शिव जी से मिलने रावण आ जाता है। आने के बाद में सेवक उसे वहीं पे रोक देते हैं, शिव जी से मिलने से मना करते हैं। तो अहंकार से उसको बहुत गुस्सा आता है रावण को, और वो ये सोचता है कि अगर शिव जी से मैं मिल नहीं सकता हूँ तो कैलाश पर्वत जो है मैं उठा के मेरे राज्य में लेके जाऊंगा। और उस तरह से वो कैलाश पर्वत उठाने की कोशिश शुरू करता है। उससे क्या होता है कि पर्वत पूरा हिलने लगता है, और शिव जी के बाजू में पार्वती बैठी होती है। तो डिपिक्शन में ऐसा बताया गया है वहां के कि पार्वती डर के मारे सिमट गई है और शिव जी का हाथ उन्होंने पकड़ लिया है। वहां के उनकी जो दासी है उसने भी सब हाथ में जो था वो फेंक कर वो भागने लगती है, और शिवगण जो है वो बड़े बड़े पत्थर लेके रावण के ऊपर फेंक रहे हैं। ऐसा डिपिक्शन उस स्टोरी का उन्होंने किया है। उसके बाद में शिव जी और उनके जो दो रक्षक रहते हैं वो एकदम काम कंपोज वहां पे दिखाए गए देते हैं, क्योंकि उनको अपने शिव जी पे विश्वास होता है। रावण का घमंड चक्काचूर करने के लिए शिव जी जोर से पर्वत को दबा देते हैं। उससे रावण जमीन में धस जाना शुरू कर देता है। उसको अपने गलती का एहसास होता है और वो शिव के शरण में आ जाता है। तो हम जो शिव तांडव स्तोत्र सुनते हैं, ऐसा बताया जाता है कि उस समय शिव जी को प्रसन्न करने के लिए रावण ने शिव तांडव स्तोत्र की रचना की थी। और उससे खुश हुए शिव जी, क्योंकि वो भोले ही होते हैं और प्रसन्न हो जाते हैं जल्दी, गुस्सा भी जल्दी आता है, खुश भी जल्दी हो जाते हैं। और उन्होंने रावण को वर दिया था उसके बाद में। और इसके लिए उस शिल्प को रावणानुग्रह, मतलब रावण के ऊपर शिव जी का अनुग्रह, ऐसा बोला जाता है। तो ये स्टोरी है और डिपिक्शन इतना सुंदर है, क्योंकि मैंने बहुत से मंदिर देखे हैं और ये टॉपिक है वो सभी कार्विंग, सभी मंदिरों में उसका कार्विंग किया गया है, लेकिन ये बहुत स्पेशल है, एक बार तो देखना ही चाहिए ऐसा।
Quite interesting it is. Zatat, I think Shiva is the most loved god. We should all just agree for it. And like Mahagatha, like we have Shiva on it, we have Adi Shakti on it. So, like, do you have any story from the book that is very close to your heart related to Shiva or Shiva Parvati, or their how their compatibility or how their union was, like any story that is very close to your heart?
There are a number of stories of Shiva and Parvati, so difficult to pick one. But I think one story that again for me is interesting because, like I said, the way the Puranas celebrate women, and I mean how feminist the Puranas were back then. So I think it's a story of Bhringi, Parvati, and Mahadev. So Bhringi is a huge Shiva devotee, and Bhringi comes and tells Mahadev that I would love to circle you 7 times so that I can get your blessings. And Mahadev says, please go ahead. And as Bhringi starts circling Shiva, Parvati comes and sits next to Shiva and says, you just cannot circle Mahadev, you have to also circle me along with it. But Bhringi is a staunch Shiva devotee and he refuses and he keeps circling only Shiva. So then Parvati comes and sits on Shiva's lap and says, now what will you do? And Bhringi still does not give up and he becomes an insect and he starts hovering around the head of Shiva, only so that he can only, worship his Ishtadev. So Parvati now starts fusing with Mahadev. So she starts becoming the Ardhanarishwara and she says, now what will you do? It's now become a battle of wills. And Bhringi still does not give up and he starts trying to tunnel through the flesh so that he can create some sort of a passage through which he can still only, circle Mahadev. And now Parvati gets really angry and she says that you are a blind devotee because you do not see what I'm trying to show you, that the universe is not made of Shiva alone. It is made, the universe is composed when Shiva and Shakti come together. It is the Ardhanarishwara that creates the universe. But you are blind to that. And so she curses Bhringi and she said that you will lose all your bones because the Puranas say that the bones come from the mother and the flesh comes from the father. So Parvati curses Bhringi and he turns into a lump of flesh and collapses. And it's only when Shiva gives him 3 legs to stand on that he's able to support himself. So again, a story that creates these central characters of Mahadev and Parvati, and through them, the central message, the cardinal message again is how that that the feminism of the Puranas that shines through in this particular tale of how that no one is above or below the other, but it is basically about equality of genders and how only when the two genders come together on an equal basis can the universe be created. So I think this again is an example of just how wonderful and how forward and how progressive the
Exactly.
Puranas were compared to what we have today in terms of the kind of mental thinking that we have.
Yeah, definitely. And reading the book has definitely been an eye opener for me as well. Like, again, like, the way Puranas celebrate femininity
Yeah,
and equality, like, that's quite unfathomable. So,
yeah.
yeah, Aboli, I would like to bring you in the conversation as well. So, like there's also mention about Sri Padmaswamy temple in the book and how, it is dedicated to Lord Vishnu. So, but as you know, Sri Padmaswamy temple has been one of the most talked about temple in India. It's been the most controversial temple in India. So, would you like to share, a brief history about it, why it is the richest temple in the country, and what made it the richest temple in the country?
Sure. So the Padmanabh Swami temple is ancient. It is believed that it predates the 9th century, and it even finds mention in the Bhagavad Gita and the Puranas. So it's said that Balram took a bath in the pond that's there, the Tirtha. So it is ancient, and when it comes to the wealth, it's actually the richest place of worship in the world. And its riches are estimated at rupees 1 lakh crores, and that is without taking into account the time value of money, because the historical records show that donations used to happen from the 14th century onwards in the form of gold, jewelry, and even elephants. So it's been accumulating that wealth since a long time. But one of the significant events because of which it is the wealthiest temple is that there was this tradition called Tripati Danam, where it started in 1749 when King Martanda Varma, in whose kingdom this temple was, he donated his entire kingdom's wealth to the temple, and he devoted himself to be the Lord's servant for the rest of his life. And this tradition was followed by all the successive kings in that dynasty, and that is why the temple is, the richest temple that we know.
So there's also, a very interesting thing about the way Lord Vishnu's statue is inside the temple. It symbolically depicts it celebrates the Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiv.
Yes.
So can you please elaborate on the symbolism and why, the statue is there in its present form? Why not any other form in the temple?
Sure. Okay, so the idol is beautiful. It is 18 feet long, and it's Lord Vishnu in eternal yogic sleep. He is sleeping on the serpent Adishesha, and there is a very interesting story, but I think it will be a little too long-minded if I get into it. But basically, the story is that there was this hermit, Divakar Muni, who really wished to see the Lord. So the Lord, he does severe penance, and then finally Lord Vishnu appears in front of him, but in the form of a child. So he doesn't know that it is Lord Vishnu, but he is very charmed by the boy. So he asks the boy to stay with him. The boy agrees, but on one condition, that he be respected. But the boy was very mischievous, and one day he messed with the puja equipment. And so the hermit got furious and he scolded the child. Because that promise of being respected was not kept, Lord Vishnu disappeared. But while leaving, he told him that it is me, and if you want to meet me, you come to Anantakadu. So finally, the hermit does go to Anantakadu, and he sees Lord Vishnu in the pose that is depicted, which is basically that he's reclining on that serpent, and his right hand is hovering over a Shivalinga, and Lord Brahma is appearing from sitting on a lotus, appearing from his navel. So that's how you get to see the pose that it is in today.
Thank you. Satyarth, so I think there are also a lot of stories about this Trinity in the Puranas also.
Yeah.
Where Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiv are there. So do you think the Puranas celebrate the Trinity, or there is one God who's above than the other God, or does the Trinity has to coexist?
No, it has to coexist. I mean, that is how, because the Trinity has a very clear division of labor. Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the preserver, and Shiva is the destroyer. So you need all three for the cosmos to function. And you rightly said there are some Purans. In fact, the Trinity is also one of the most interesting divisions of the Puranas. There are some Purans that are dedicated to Lord Brahma, like the Padma Puran, for example. There are some dedicated to Mahavishnu, and there are some dedicated to Shiva. And those Purans, of course, extol the virtues of those particular gods that they're dedicated to. But there are, like you said, there are stories that actually bring the three together, and that's always a very heartwarming tale to read, because when you see the three of them together and see the three, the so-called Trinity or the Triumvirate, and how and what they do to create the cosmos, to preserve it and destroy it, that I think is fascinating. Like there's one story where Shiva gets really angry because he was meditating, and nearby Vishnu starts some sort of a yajna which disturbs Mahadev. So Mahadev comes storming to that ceremony and says, "I'll not let this ceremony happen because you've disturbed my meditation." And Brahma intervenes because Mahadev and Vishnu are about to clash, and if that clash happens, the universe would just simply implode. So Brahma is always the creator, so he always comes in between these two superpowers and trying to pacify them all the time. That do not harm my creation, my universe. So Brahma comes and pleads to to Vishnu and Mahadev, and they both agree and they both calm down. And Brahma says a very beautiful thing. He says that you both have removed fear from my heart by agreeing to my proposal. So he says, now, what I'll do is I'll give you a new name to each of you. He says, I'll name Mahadev Hari and I'll name Mahadev Har. He says, Hari and Har mean the same thing. One who removes fear. जो भय को हर लेता है उसे हरि कहते हैं या हर कहते हैं. So he says, I name you Hari and Har, and when the two of you are together, and when your names are taken together, that will be called Harihar. So that is how the name Harihar comes out in the Purans. So again, a beautiful demonstration of the three, the three superpowers coming together for the good of the universe. The greater good of the universe is what the Puranas have always stressed upon, and that is the cardinal principle that all the gods, have always nurtured. That the greater good of humanity and the greater good of Earth, and whatever needs to be done to maintain that has to be done. So again, that I think is a beautiful story of the Trinity in Mahagatha.
Slight skirmishes between the gods, like the Trinity, they have fought over the supremacy.
Yeah, that happens. In fact, that's a lot more between Mahadev and Vishnu. Okay. There's in fact Shiva and Vishnu have some sort of a bromance. If you look at the kind of stories that the Puranas have, and they always come to each other's help. Like it is Mahadev who, for example, rescues Vishnu when he is about to go and defile Vrinda. It is Mahadev who counsels him. It is Vishnu who helps Shiva cope with the loss of Sati and helps him come out of that grief. There are many stories where the two come together and help each other. There's a beautiful story where it is said that it is Mahadev who gives the Sudarshan Chakra to Vishnu. Again, because of one of his, the way, again, a very beautiful story about how Vishnu offers his eye to Mahadev in a puja, and because he was giving him lotuses and one lotus goes missing. So Vishnu remembers that one of his names is actually Kamal Nayan, which means that my eyes are like a lotus. So he puts out one of his eyes on that flower offering, and Mahadev is so touched that he comes and he heals Vishnu back, and he gives him the Sudarshan Chakra, which is why the chakra is also called Sudarshan, because it comes from the eye, which means virtuous vision. So there are many stories involving the three of them, and how they help each other. And ultimately, the goal is to create a sort of a cosmos, a sort of a universe that is just and where greater good prevails. That has always been the cardinal attempt of the Trinity.
Truly fascinating it is. So, like both of you have written books on topics, on subjects which are unfortunately losing their relevance in these days. Like, Aboli, I would like to ask you, like, faith is becoming less and less, and, people are just shying away from their mythology, or, and I don't know how much people are devoted these days. So, how do you think, how much devotion is still relevant today? Or if you want to introduce your book to the youth today, how do you think your book would be relevant to the younger generation in these days?
I think that's a really important question. And as a person from that young generation, I don't think that the young people are averse to, mythology or devotion in any way. It's just that they don't like the way that it's presented to them. So I think that's why the book is really important, because it doesn't try to morally, preach in any form. It's telling stories of kings, of our history, of mythology, and it's basically showing that there have been these really devoted individuals who have built incredible things, which we can see to this day and be inspired by. And I don't think that devotion is irrelevant. I think we see it in different forms today. It could be a traditional prayer for someone, it could be dedication to their job, or a greater cause. Basically it's devotion in its core is depth, right? It's feeling something bigger than yourself and what is the immediate present. And I think in our present day life, where everything is so fast and fleeting, we really have a need to have that kind of devotion to ground ourselves. So I think that's why the book is really important, because it shows that our culture, our history has had that kind of space for depth and complexity and beauty. And that's how I would, promote my book, our book rather.
Satyarth, for you, clearly Mahagatha has been ruling the chart since, more than 2.5 years. So clearly there's a, space for a book like this. People do like reading it. But still, what do you feel, the relevance of such books? Like Aboli said that, there is clearly an interest, of people
Yeah.
reading such kind of books, but it has to be presented in a different form. Then only people will take it. But how relevant do you feel, for the past 2.5 years, Mahagatha definitely has been relevant, but, how far do you think, the book will be relevant in coming times?
Ridhima, I think you've not been watching the news channels, because I think today Mandir Masjid is the number one topic in India. So I think religion has suddenly become the only topic of conversation in India. So, but anyways, jokes apart, both Andhbhakt, let's not get into that discussion. But yes, I think like you said, Mahagatha has done really well, and I think how far the book will go. See, for me, I believe that what the Puranas do is that they help you in a search for the answers that one looks for. A human condition has always been about searching for answers, and we all need answers. We all need some sort of a validation. And that is where the Puranas step in, because the way they help you kind of navigate the universe, the way they help you create some sort of a truth that you might hold on to. It might get challenging when you enter that world. Like I said, it's a staggering world of mythology, but once in a while, you come across a truth, you come across some sort of a morality or some sort of a lesson that suddenly makes you feel that this is what you've been wanting for for the whole of your life. So the fact that, so as long as there are questions and there are answers, as long as that there is man's quest for knowledge and for wisdom, the Puranas will always stay relevant. And if the Puranas will always stay relevant, so will Mahagatha, because it encapsulates the Puranas. So that is always there. And yes, like Aboli said, we have to package it well for the generations that are reading today. See, our generations were much more fortunate that we had a layer of storytellers in our families. We had grandfathers and grandmothers, who could tell us stories that they had heard from their generations, and they could pass on that wisdom to us. Unfortunately, today, a lot of the youngsters do not get that. In nuclear families, that layer of storytellers is missing. So somewhere we, I think, can occupy that space with our writings, with our books, and this search for roots that a lot of the younger generation today does look for. That's a feeling that something has been lost along the way, and how do we reclaim that? How do we reclaim our culture, our stories, our history? So that, I think, is where writers like us can step in and create, some sort of fill that vacuum with the kind of books that we give them, that are well presented, well written, and that do not complicate, and do not create false myths and false truths, and do not brainwash you into any sort of Hindutva philosophy, but simply give you the purity of what the Puranas are trying to tell you. The Puranas never discriminate between a Hindu or a Muslim or a low caste or a higher caste. The Puranas have always been a very progressive body of literature. So to present that with a lot of reverence and purity, that the Puranas, the wisdom gets distilled, and the younger generation gets that. That, I think, is what Mahagatha has been doing, and I'm happy that I've been able to do that.
Yeah, and the fact that it celebrates plurality as well. There's no
Yeah,
one
yeah.
single truth.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely,
that has
absolutely.
been
The
also.
Puranas have always celebrated plurality, celebrated the idea that there can never be a single truth, because which is why for me the Ardhanarishvara, the image, is so powerful. I mean, of course, it's about a man and a woman coming together, but if you see on a very fundamental level, it is about that if there is one truth, there has to be a counter truth. If there is vad, there has to be vivad, and only then can there be samvad. So you need to create a truth and an opposite truth coming together. Can there be a third and new truth? And that is how we evolve. So it's important that the dialogue is always created, and it's never one-sided. And that is what the Puranas teach, and what Mahagatha endeavors to teach.
Yeah, definitely. So, since you both have been, writers, you've written books, and we publish books, we, want to bring them towards the readers. But book piracy has also been a very big issue these days, and you find a lot of books getting pirated despite the efforts that we put in. So, as authors, I would like to know, what's your perspective on the book piracy that is very rampant these days? Siddharth, if you'd like to go first, you can let me know your thoughts.
No, I mean, it definitely is a problem. There's no shying away from that. And although I have been very happily putting pictures of are books getting pirated? Because apparently that is some sort of a stamp that if your book is a pirated one, then that means the book is a success. So I've been sharing that. But yes, it is a huge problem. It eats into the revenue that publishers earn and subsequently authors earn. So I do get that it's a problem, but I think as an author, I'm not sure if there's much that I can do on my end. I think I would direct the question back at you and at publishing houses, that maybe if Penguin and Harper and Westland, if you guys come together and create some sort of, something that can be done about it, that probably would be the solution to that. Because it is a menace, yes, one sees it all around, but I don't know if there's an easy solution. If piracy has kind of continued for so long, for so many years, something is keeping it alive. Also, I saw a post recently where a man said that and he said in Hindi, which sounds much better. He said कि ज्ञान किसी भी रूप में पहुंचे तो ज्ञान होता है. So even if it's coming to you through a pirated book, even that is you ultimately getting the essence of it. So on one hand, more people get to read your book because you're getting it in a cheaper price, even though the quality is bad, but the knowledge is getting transmitted, the wisdom is getting transmitted. So somewhere that is also there, and yet you have the other side of it where revenue suffers because of piracy. So it's a difficult question to debate, and like I said, maybe not so much authors, but publishers who are holding the reins of publishing in this country. Maybe they can create some sort of a law or a rule where a lot of it can be curbed.
It indeed is a a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Aboli, your views, if I would ask.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there's immense work that goes behind bringing a book to life, right? It's not just at the author's end. If there's a translation, there's a translator. You guys work so hard as publishers to bring it to the public. And, I feel like piracy is, nobody's debating that it's wrong. It is wrong. And as a lawyer, I personally feel that nothing can justify, infringement of intellectual property. If we value knowledge, if we are valuing knowledge, we should also value the people behind that knowledge and ensure that they are adequately compensated. So that's my view on it. I don't have any solutions to provide, sadly.
Clearly using this platform to tell people, please buy, don't buy pirated books.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us. Wish you all a very happy World Book Day. And thank you so much for being here, giving us time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Thank you, Ridhima. Thank you.